Good afternoon, parents. Hope you're doing well. Happy Sunday. It is the second Sunday of August, which means we are closer to the start of the school year. 3 more Sundays until we are back together in school. Today's chat, I am going to focus primarily on one topic. It's a topic that's asked often, and we finally have some clarification on the steps we're going to take. So that topic is, what will the school do when there is a positive COVID case within the school, or somebody within our school community has had contact with a positive case? So I'm going to outline the different scenarios for you and explain those to you. In this email, you will see a document that was attached. It is the guidelines I'm going to be explaining to you. So what I advise you to do is print that document out after this chat is over and then read through it so you have clear clarification and understanding of what we will be doing. Keep that document near you as well as we head into the new school year. One thing to note, I'm not going to read the document to you. I'm just going to highlight and give you some scenarios and show you some visuals for some of these quarantining timeframes. I think sometimes it's best if we hear, see, and read. So those three learning modules kind of go together to make things super clear. Nothing's changed since I shared with you in July where we're getting our guidance from. We are still getting our guidance from the Ozaukee, Washington Health Department, as well as the CDC. So those two organizations are who has guided the protocols we're using at Lumen Christi. So I'm going to start now, and without further ado, before I begin on the really logistics, I want to share with you a definition that is the basis for everything we're going to be talking about, and that is close contact. Close contact, how that is defined, is close contact with another person is where you were 6 or closer than 6 feet with that person, with or without a mask, for a cumulative amount of time of 15 minutes or more. So if I am with somebody and we're closer than 6 feet, and I was with that person for 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes at lunch, and then 5 minutes at the end of the day, I would be considered having been in close contact with that person. Okay, so it's not 15 minutes at a chunk, it's a total of 15 minutes, and it's within a 24-hour period. So it's an important piece to note. The second is contact tracing. So contact tracing is done in order to determine who all has had exposure to someone with COVID. The health department has transferred that to us as the responsibility of contact tracing within our building. So what that means is if a Lumen Christi student or staff member would test positive, the health department will first notify the patient, the positive patient. The health department will then notify the school. If it's a staff member, it's their place of business, their employer. So again, the school. We will then, as a school, have the responsibility to create a list of every person that that positive patient has had close contact with within 24 hours. We will put that list together, and then everybody on that list, everybody who had close contact with that positive school community member, will be notified by the school that they have been exposed to, have a possible exposure to COVID. Please know, we cannot disclose the name of the person with COVID. So that is due to HIPAA, we cannot share that information with you. I find that this is, again, bigger than like a lice scenario, but when we had head lice, we'd often get the phone call of, who was it? We want to know which child has lice because I have 5 kids in the school and I want to know if my child might have been exposed. For COVID, the only piece that matters is that close contact, okay? So to make contact tracing the process as seamless as possible, we have decided, and we will be doing what's called the cohort model of student groupings. So we are going to try to limit as many contacts that your child has with anybody in the school, so to keep those groups as tight as possible. So what that means is our students from 3K to 5th grade, those children are going to be with their classroom teacher and that homeroom class. Once we get to 4th and 5th grade, the students have both teachers for subjects. So in that case, the students will stay in their physical classroom and the teachers will switch. So in a given year, typically, let's just use 1st grade as an example, Mrs. Wormers and Mrs. Paulson students There's times throughout the day where those kids play together. They may all go into one classroom and do an activity together. Those types of things will not be happening this year. So those homerooms are literally going to stay tight together. And that, again, that's a safety piece. For our middle school model, the cohorts are going to be grade levels. So 6th grade will be a cohort. Our students in 6th, 7th, and 8th are going to be grouped into 2 groupings. So there'll be a 6th grade morning group and a 6th grade afternoon group. So they will have exposure or contact with the entire 6th grade. 6th grade and 7th grade, though, they will not have interaction or contact. Our teachers have been working very hard, and we're really close to having a finalized schedule for how passing periods, going to lockers, going to lunch, recess, all of those specifics are going to be very scheduled so that we do not have that exposure or that possibility of close contact happening. So here are the scenarios we're going to walk through. So the first scenario would be your child tests positive for COVID. Okay, so if your child tests positive for COVID, your child will immediately be assigned to what's called virtual learning, which I talked about a little bit last week. Your child cannot return to school for at least 10 days since the symptoms appeared, and 24 hours have passed since the last fever, without using, obviously, Advil or Tylenol or any fever-reducing medication, and your child does not have any COVID symptoms. So 10 days, and then there's an additional day where no fever and no symptoms, okay? What I'm going to do, actually, I'm gonna show a visual on the screen, but I'm gonna go through the next scenario first. So sometimes we're visual people to show that. So if that's the case, then your child can come back to school. Let's say it's day 8 of quarantine and your child's like feeling fine, no fever, you're like ready to get them back to school. They can't come back until 10 days, and then that additional day of no fever, no symptoms. If it's day 11 and your child still has a fever and still has symptoms, they can't come back. So it's that minimum of 10 and then that additional 24 hours. So that's the guidelines on that. If your child has been in close contact with someone at school who's tested positive, so this is the biggest question I get. Question is, we'll use myself as an example. I have a 4th grader and I have a 1st grader, okay? And let's say that my 4th grader, I get the notification from the school that Julia has been in close contact with someone who's tested positive. So that means somebody in her classroom has COVID. What's going to happen is you will be notified by the school. So I would get a notification that Julia has been in close contact with someone with COVID. Julia would be assigned to virtual learning. She will be quarantined at home for 14 calendar days. If after those 14 days, she has no symptoms, she never tested positive within that 14 days, she was just home doing her thing, fine. She then can return to school after that 14-day period. I'm going to show you that visual here in a second. Let me just transition my screen. So this is kind of what that looks like. I showed this to my staff and they felt like seeing the visual was helpful. So here's what it looks like. So this is just a generic calendar. So the last day they had contact, so let's say Julia. Julia was at school on the 1st, and she was in that classroom with somebody who had COVID. She would then quarantine for these green days, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. This is the last day of quarantine, and then she would return to school on the 16th, okay? The CDC does kind of get down to come very specific. So if quarantine started at noon on day 1, then it would end at noon on the last day. For reasons of being easy, we're just going to do the end of a day to the start of that next day, okay? So hopefully that's helpful to see that. And then the next scenario, the last scenario, is really someone in your household that does not test positive, or that tests positive doesn't attend the school. So for example, if my husband would test positive for COVID, okay? The health department would notify my husband, you have COVID. They would notify his employer. They would then ask him for a list of all the close contacts he has had within 24 hours, and then a list of all of his family members living in his household. They would then get Julia and Charlotte's name. They would then contact the school to let us know that someone in our school was in close contact. We also ask in those scenarios that you notify the school additionally. Your child, if that's the scenario, your child would be assigned to virtual learning. If you can't completely isolate your child from the positive person, if you can. So if you can isolate, your child can return after 14 days. So again, Fife household, Mr. Fife has COVID. We have a finished basement with bathroom and things. So we would be putting him downstairs, closing that basement door, and probably passing a tray of food through that door. I would be doing that. So Julia has no contact with her father at all. Okay, she doesn't see him after we get that positive. She has to quarantine for 14 days. So she would be upstairs, no contact with Mr. Fife, with her dad. She could then return to school after those 14 days if she has no symptoms. Now, if we can't isolate her father or my husband, let's say that we're in the house, she has to quarantine for 10 days, because remember, he would be isolating for 10 days because he's got COVID, right? So he has to isolate for 10. So her last day of being exposed would be that 10th day. So we're all here for 10 days. Then she has to quarantine for an additional 14 days after last exposure with close contact. So it gets a little bit kind of blurry in that area. It'll be a total of 24 possible days. Let's say after the second day, we're like, we can't handle this. So we're gonna like put Mr. Fife somewhere else in the garage. I don't know where we're gonna put him, but we're gonna put him somewhere where we're gonna not have the kids have contact with him. So let's say it's 2 days where we're home. The minute he goes into isolation, it's then 14 days from that time period, okay? The sort of last scenario, which kind of goes with one on the top, is if your child had close contact with someone not at Lumen Christi. So let's say you're at a birthday party, a family birthday party, and you get a phone call from your sister that one of her children has COVID, and you were together at this birthday party. No one goes to Lumen Christi but your child, then your child would stay home for 14 days, okay? The one question that's often asked is this, and I'll go back to my scenario. So Julia was in a classroom with a positive COVID case, okay? I also have a first grader at Lumen Christi, Charlotte. Does Charlotte need to quarantine because they're sisters? Nope, Charlotte had no contact with that fourth grade classroom. She does not need to isolate or quarantine. She can still come to school while Julia's home for those 14 days. Now, if Julia develops symptoms of COVID and tests positive, well, now Charlotte has had close contact with her sibling because we live in the same house. That's where then that family quarantining structure goes into place. So it's a lot of different veins this kind of goes into. We do have some tools that we're using at school to monitor all of these close contacts. It is going to be a hefty job to do, but we have some really great protocols and just tools in place that are going to help us track the students. The best thing at this time is open communication, be in regular contact with us, and let us know anything that you would know, okay? Finally, I want to end today by just saying thank you. I know this is a very, very uncertain time in our world. I know many of us are worried. We're concerned about our health and safety of our children, ourselves. I know my parents are getting older and not as healthy as they used to be, so we worry about their health. We worry about how our students are going to do transitioning back to school. Are they behind academically? Will they be okay socially when they come back? It's been 6 months since they've been back in the building. That's a long time. It's a half a year, obviously. That is the longest stretch of time any of us have gone without being together. We know transitions are never easy. Even good transitions, like starting a new job, graduating from college, having a baby, moving into a new home, those are all awesome and great things. But we know that those transitions often put a pit in our stomach, and sometimes we start to doubt ourselves. The reason why is human nature, human beings, we can easily get complacent. We all like routine. We like when things feel secure and comfortable. We don't like rocking the boat. So we need to make sure that during those times of uncertainty, that we stay united. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an example. I remember, I was thinking about this the other day. I was talking to my husband about when we were expecting our first daughter, Sophia. We were super excited. We found out we were going to have her. So excited, getting the room ready, all of those things that lead up to that first child. But as the days grew closer to when she was going to arrive, I remember as a mom getting more and more nervous about things. I started to doubt myself. I started wondering, like, am I going to be an okay mom? Am I going to be able to balance work and motherhood? I don't know how to do this. All these things started flooding into my head, normal doubts. But then as it got closer, so as that due date became very close, I started to get these really crazy doubts. It was almost on the verge of being ridiculous. And I remember one point thinking, what if I'm driving home at night from the grocery store and I've got my baby in the car and I get a flat tire, I'm on a dark road, I don't have a cell phone, what's going to happen? I can't be a mom. I don't know what I would do. And these really kind of crazy thoughts started to come into my mind. And I remember that night I called my mom. The first thing I did was call my mom. And the moment that I heard her voice, my anxiety just dropped. The moment she heard my voice, she said, "Are you okay? You sound different. What's going on?" She knew me so well that she could tell I was struggling without me even saying this crazy scenario. I can't be a mom. What if this flat tire happens? She knew something was wrong just by my voice. I look back at the conversation today, 17 years ago. I don't remember what she said to me. I don't know what words of wisdom she gave me. I don't know the advice. But I do know that she put me at ease. I felt a sense of calm and I felt like, you know what, I can do this. I trusted her so much that really no matter what she said, I knew things would be okay. It's in those times of uncertainty that we need to surround ourselves by family. I was okay because I was with my family. People that know us, people who care about us so much that they have our backs no matter what's going on. So at this very uncertain time in our world, in your life, when you're doubting what to do with school, you're doubting what decision to make, I urge you to not make any drastic decisions regarding your child's education. We're a family at Lumen Christi. We all stick together. Your children have been away from us for a long time, and it's pretty certain they're feeling some anxiety right now. So the one thing that's going to help their anxiety is returning to their family. Returning to the teachers, the staff, their classmates who love them, who care about them, who know how your children learn. They know just by looking at your child if something's off or if something's going on. They know just the right thing to say when they're struggling. And they know that no matter what happens, that they're going to be there to stick together and get them through these rough times. Finally, next week's chat's going to be a big one. So next week I will be unveiling to you all of the specifics from the plan I shared on July 7th. So things like logistics, cleaning, schedules, lunch. What does distance teaching look like if we have to shut down the school completely? We have really revamped that. People have asked some more specifics about virtual learning that I talked about last week. So I'll be revealing and discussing those specifics with you next week. So next week's will be a little bit longer. It'll be more detailed. We will have a plan and attachment to the email that will outline all these different things. So kind of plan for that. In the meantime, I hope you have a wonderful week with your family, with your children. Enjoy these last days as summer draws to a close. And I look forward to chatting with you next week.